Important. We've missed human connection, certainly after the pandemic and everything.
What happened in that South Park episode that made even the most hardcore Meghan fans pause? You won't believe the hilarious yet savage truth they revealed. When Meghan Markle sat down for that cringe-worthy podcast with Jamie Kern-Lima, we thought we'd seen it all. But in classic South Park fashion, the show didn't just poke fun. They absolutely obliterated her. The internet is buzzing, and trust me, this roast has all the spice you didn't know you needed. If you thought Meghan's podcast was cringy, wait until you see what South Park did with it. The jokes hit hard, the sarcasm flowed freely, and the internet couldn't stop talking about it. Stick around until the end because you won't believe what went down. Spoiler alert, South Park didn't just hold back, they went full throttle on Meghan. Let's get into it.
So what if a guy is gay and rides a Harley?
Then he's a gay.
We all know South Park is no stranger to satire. No one, not even the royal family, is safe from their sharp wit. But when Meghan Markle became the target of their latest episode, the gloves came off. They didn't just poke fun, they went straight for the heart of what made her viral podcast with Jamie Kern-Lima such a hit. Her dramatic vulnerability and over-the-top self-promotion.
You know how to curtsy, right? And I just thought it was a joke.
The episode poked fun at Meghan's podcast interview in a way that only South Park could. Exaggerated, sarcastic, and brimming with that signature tone that mixes humour with uncomfortable truth. The show didn't just show her talking about her struggles, they turned it into a parody, exaggerating her words until they were laughably absurd. Meghan's interview, which was already pretty awkward, was now a full-on spectacle, one that had the audience in stitches.
Being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves.
But here's the twist. South Park didn't just make fun of Meghan. They peeled back the layers and turned her authentic moments into comedy gold. And the internet ate it up. So what was the real message? The funniest part? Meghan's apparent deep dive into her soul-searching journey, which felt more like a carefully crafted image campaign than anything resembling genuine emotion. It was like watching someone try to be so authentic that it became painfully staged. Meghan's relatable lines. South Park transformed them into punchlines. Viewers immediately flooded social media, saying, "Finally, someone said what we were all thinking." If you've ever seen a South Park episode before, you know they love to exaggerate, especially when it comes to celebrity culture. This time, they took Meghan's most heartfelt podcast moments and cranked them up to 11. From the soft lighting to the dramatic pauses, South Park made it clear how staged everything felt. And the buzzwords. Oh, they didn't let those slide? But did South Park cross the line with their mockery? Did they hit Meghan where it really hurts, or just bring the laughs? Keep watching to find out. The whole interview was laced with trendy phrases like growth, empowerment, and finding your purpose. These catchphrases were repeated so often that they began to lose all meaning. South Park nailed it by turning these overused terms into comedic gold. The episode's characters started throwing random motivational words like a game, mimicking how Meghan's interview kept circling back to the same set of phrases. The message was loud and clear. When every sentence is filled with trendy buzzwords, it starts to sound more like a brand than a conversation. But South Park didn't stop there. They also mocked the awkwardness of the entire interview. There were long pauses and moments that felt like Meghan was waiting for an invisible round of applause after every deep statement. In the world of South Park, this was comedy gold. The satire didn't just stop at the buzzwords, it drove home the point that Meghan's podcast felt like a performance rather than an authentic conversation. Now let's talk about the part that really made people squirm: the need for constant validation. Meghan's podcast, despite its heavy-handed attempt to appear raw and genuine, seemed to scream, "Look at me, I'm doing so much. Aren't I amazing?" South Park didn't shy away from mocking this, exaggerating the way Meghan would seek approval at every turn. Ever felt like someone was trying way too hard to be seen as real? South Park just took that feeling and turned it into a roast for the ages. The episode had its characters reacting with over-the-top praise for every sentence Meghan spoke, making it clear that the interview wasn't about sharing her story. It was about managing her public image. There was no room for real vulnerability, just a steady stream of, "I'm doing so much for the world, please validate me." The characters played it up, as if every word Meghan uttered was begging for applause. And honestly, it worked. This part of the satire hit a chord with viewers who couldn't help but feel like Meghan was just trying too hard to show how authentic she was. It was a clever reflection of how South Park saw the interview, a carefully curated attempt at crafting a brand, rather than a heartfelt moment of self-reflection. Here's where it gets really interesting. Meghan's talk about her nightly routine, where she allegedly writes emails to her kids about her love for them, was one of the podcast's most emotional moments. In the interview, she made it sound like this was an intimate, meaningful gesture. But South Park took it and turned it into pure comedic gold. And just when you thought it couldn't get more cringy, South Park took the most emotional part of the podcast and turned it into pure parody. Hold on to your hats. The satire highlighted how these private moments of motherhood were presented as dramatic stories for the public to consume. Suddenly, writing emails to your children at night felt less like a personal routine and more like a performance for an audience. Viewers couldn't help but cringe at how Meghan had taken a simple, loving gesture and turned it into a headline-ready moment. The show exaggerated this to such a degree that the punchline practically wrote itself. And what was the point? Sometimes it's better to keep certain things private. But in Meghan's case, everything seemed to be on display for the world to judge, scrutinize, and ultimately poke fun at. South Park showed how, in the pursuit of creating an emotional connection, Meghan had instead turned these private moments into public spectacles. One of the most talked about aspects of the interview was Meghan's decision to appear makeup-free, attempting to show her authentic self. But South Park wasn't having any of it. The episode poked fun at this by showing characters awkwardly trying to pull off the no-makeup look, only to receive strange reactions from others. The message here was clear. Sometimes, attempts at being authentic can feel more like manipulating the image you want to project. Is going makeup-free really about authenticity? Or is it just another calculated move? Find out what South Park thinks next. It's not about the makeup, it's about the image. South Park exaggerated how Meghan's makeup-free moment felt more like an attempt to craft a raw image than a truly spontaneous choice. They turned this into a funny moment that poked fun at how Meghan was trying to present herself as genuine when it felt more like another carefully orchestrated move. Viewers instantly recognized the humor in this. Meghan's authenticity wasn't about being real, it was about controlling how people saw her. Let's talk about fashion, activism, and how South Park skewered Meghan's attempt to merge the two. On her podcast, Meghan discussed how she supports ethical, women-led brands and proudly wore clothes that aligned with her values. But in classic South Park fashion, the show didn't miss a beat, exaggerating her entire approach to fashion activism. Does activism through fashion actually do anything? South Park thinks it's all about the image, and they've got the jokes to prove it. The characters wore ridiculous outfits, meant to look like they stood for a cause, but ultimately, the message got lost in the image. The point wasn't about caring for causes, it was about looking like you care. South Park made it clear that when the style becomes the statement, the cause can easily be overshadowed. The joke wasn't about her supporting ethical brands, but about how, in trying so hard to make an impact, the entire effort felt more like an attention-grabbing statement than a genuine passion for change. Throughout the interview, Meghan kept using the word "yet" over and over again. And South Park didn't miss the chance to turn this into its final punchline. They exaggerated the use of "yet" to the point where it became almost a running joke, with characters throwing it into every sentence, making it sound more like a silly rule than a hopeful message. Think a simple word like "yet" couldn't be funny. South Park took this and turned it into one of the most memorable jokes of the episode. You won't believe how they did it. What was originally intended to sound like a powerful statement about perseverance became, in South Park's hands, a repetitive, awkward catchphrase that lost its meaning the more it was used. The show captured how the constant repetition of a single word turned what should have been a deep sentiment into a comical, overused phrase. Fans of the show loved how this bit landed, as it perfectly encapsulated the feeling that Meghan's attempt at being profound was actually more about creating sound bites than delivering real, meaningful thoughts. South Park's take on Meghan Markle's viral podcast interview was a masterpiece of satire. They didn't just make fun of the interview, they deconstructed it. The exaggeration, the buzzwords, the fake authenticity. South Park turned these moments into a full-blown roast, and the internet couldn't get enough. If anything, the episode gave voice to what many viewers were thinking. Sometimes when you try too hard to sound deep or genuine, it ends up sounding forced and completely disconnected from reality. Now it's your turn. Did South Park go too far? Or did they perfectly capture the essence of Meghan's interview? Let's talk about it. So, what do you think? Did South Park go too far? Or did they hit the nail on the head? Was the interview really as cringeworthy as the show made it out to be? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about it. And if you loved this breakdown of Meghan Markle's latest roast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more juicy gossip and hilarious celebrity commentary. Trust me, this won't be the last time we see Meghan in the hot seat.